The final installment for Evangelion is finally here after years, and I mean literally years of waiting. Let's talk about 3.0 plus 1.0. Hey everyone, hope you've had a good week, and I'm assuming if you're watching this, then you've had a chance to watch the new long-awaited film on your Amazon Prime account. Amazon were the ones to bring Evangelion to us outside of Japan, otherwise we would still be probably waiting for this film. Evangelion is a fascinating franchise. It seems to have always had issues with release schedules and budget constraints, and just something always delaying the release or hindering it in some way. The original series Neon Genesis of Evangelion, which came out back in 1995, has some of the most memorable endings to an anime series, and not for the reasons you might be thinking about. I remember watching the original series, and on the last episode, you were watching the animation turn into sketches and looking like rough edits before they complete the animation. At first, I thought maybe this is just an artistic decision, which wouldn't surprise me in a series like Evangelion that is chock full of interesting artistic design choices. But as you complete the episode, it just becomes a series of screenshots, and you are left in confusion as it wasn't very clear what exactly just happened. They later did release a standalone film called The End of Evangelion, which helps gives us fans a much better closure to the series. But I don't think I'm alone on this when I say, does anyone truly understand what exactly is going on in Evangelion? There are countless YouTube videos going into great detail trying to explain the events of Evangelion, and truly, a lot of them would just do a much better job than I ever could, trying to explain the timelines. But also for me personally, this is one of the things that I love about Evangelion, is how they don't try to cater to everyone, and the franchise does exactly what it wants to do and tells the story the way it wants to be told. So in 2007, we got word that new Evangelion films will be coming roughly 10 years after the original series aired, and we would be getting a total of 4 films, the first being titled Evangelion 1.0 You Are Not Alone. The second film, Evangelion 2.0 You Cannot Advance, released in 2009, so only 2 years later. Then Evangelion 3.0 You Cannot Redo, released 3 years later in 2012. So remember how I mentioned there's 4 films? Well, we are now in 2021, and I mentioned the third film dropping in 2012, meaning we've been waiting almost 10 years for the fourth and final film to drop. So now that brings us to the very film I want to discuss, and that's the long-awaited 3.0 plus 1.0. But for the rest of this video, I'm just going to be referring to the film as Shin for short to make it easier. Also, from this point forward, it will be chock full of spoilers, so you've been warned. The first thing that immediately stands out about this film is the visuals. The background set designs of all the locations are so beautifully detailed. I couldn't help but just pause the movie and just stare at a scene. A shot that would only be seen for less than a second would still have incredible detail. And I just thought to myself, the person who had to spend hours and hours drawing that scene for only to be on screen for a split second. I also love the use of colors that they would throw on the screen. They would not be scared to oversaturate a scene with reds, which would really emphasize and pop the main characters to the front of the screen. I also love some of the camera angles they would choose, utilizing low angle shots from behind, really giving it that cinematic look. And it would be done for such simple scenes, like this one where we have Shinji just walking up a hill, but the framing of the shot was just so masterfully done. You can take almost any shot from this movie and turn it into a gorgeous looking wallpaper. In fact, it's exactly what I'm going to be doing once I finish making this video, because they also shot this movie in the extra wide 21:9 aspect ratio to truly give it that cinematic look. Okay, let's change this desktop wallpaper. Let's see the different options we have. Okay, I think this is gonna be the one for sure. And done. I'm happy that Amazon was able to provide this movie to us, but a movie this beautiful honestly deserves a theatrical experience. Watching this on the big screen would have been breathtaking. I've gone back now so many times, just pausing scene after scene, and amazed at the level of work all the artists would have had to put into this film to have it completed at a level this high. If they were going to make us wait 10 years to see it, then they made sure the wait was worth it from a visual standpoint. Now, there were a few scenes that they utilized 3D renders, mainly during the fight sequences between the Evas, that took me out of the film a little bit because it was noticeable, but it wasn't so bad that it ruined the film in any way. But I understand the reasoning for the 3D assets because animating that many frames would have been an insane amount of work for the level of detail that is happening on the screen. Though it does give it that video game look at times, so I just had to point that out, but overall the visuals were truly beautiful. This is the part that I was honestly dreading to talk about in the video. When it comes to Evangelion, it honestly has to go down as one of the most confusing storylines I've ever tried to follow. And I mean truly follow, because it's hard to know which version of these characters we are following through the entire film. Though I do just blame myself for this and not really the fault of the film, because I've had this issue since Neon Genesis. I also think it's one of the reasons why this franchise hooks me in, which is its incredibly complex storytelling, making me really focus on trying to follow everything that is going on. The film is taking place after the third impact, which was caused by Shinji, and the result of him losing his friend Kaworu, and he spends the majority of the film in severe depression. They find themselves at a village where they take refuge, but Shinji won't speak, eat, or do anything. He just sits there quietly. Rei, or I guess this copy of Rei, is learning what it is to be human, and I really enjoyed these simple moments with her character, and she spends time with the locals, and they teach her just simple things like saying thank you or good morning, all these that were just simply irrelevant to her as a battle clone. We unfortunately do learn that Rei won't be able to survive much longer away from the NERV headquarters, and after a few days, she explodes into liquid. Sayonara. Asuka is fed up with Shinji for being so weak-minded and is disgusted just looking at him and forces him to eat his food. Her approach, surprisingly, doesn't work. Despite this entire sequence of the film being a slow build, it was by far the most human moments we got in the movie, as we spend time with the main cast and people just trying to survive in the village. We can see humanity is just doing everything it can to survive another day. Shinji, Rei, and Asuka make their way back to NERV, where we discover that Gendo, who is Shinji's father, is in fact the one pulling all the strings, and he removes his glasses, where we see his disturbing looking face. He confesses he threw away his humanity in order to obtain information that surpasses the logic of the world, and as he does that, he takes Eva 13, while Shinji requests to take the Eva 1 to stop his father. Shinji and Gendo go into an incredible battle where the visuals again are just jaw-dropping, and they did such a fantastic job to make the situation feel completely hopeless. Misato becomes the heart of the film as she does the bravest thing of all. She sacrifices herself to stop the fourth impact. This is where things get incredibly interesting because Shinji talks to Kaworu, and after Kaworu and Kaji have a conversation, Shinji decides to do a complete reset of the world. A Neon Genesis, if you will. Get it? Shinji returns all the Evas and failures of Infinity back into human and animal forms, restoring the world, but one without Evas in it. The visuals during this sequence take me back to the original Neon Genesis series, with so many throwbacks to the original. I especially love the callback to the black and white unfinished animation sequences we get here, which made for such a controversial ending to the original series back in the day, which is exactly what I was talking about at the beginning of this video. This finale leaves me in a bittersweet spot. I really did love this movie, but this may also be the final Evangelion film we ever get. I mentioned it already in this video, but Evangelion has always had issues with production for countless reasons, and this movie was no exception, with years and years of delays. Nonetheless, I'm so happy I finally got to watch it, and despite this maybe being the ending of Evangelion, I'm happy it finally got to truly spread its wings and do it the way it was meant to be done. Despite Evangelion being a mech anime, I don't really consider it a mech anime. I truly think it's mainly a drama with action sequences. The emotional roller coaster and the psychological torment our heroes have to undertake throughout all of these films is truly just heartbreaking. Death at times feels like it would just be a merciful choice for what they have to face, but in the end, it seems like we finally got our happy ending. I'm not going to pretend as if I truly understand all the events of Evangelion. I do think it's one of the most complicated series I've ever watched, and I've watched countless videos trying to explain the timeline between the series and the films, but even with all that, it's still incredibly difficult to follow. Despite this, I love the series and come back and revisit time to time. And these 4 films will be no different, but now it will be great to be able to just watch them back to back without having to wait years in between. So what did you think about the film? Are you sad to see Evangelion finally coming to an end? Are you satisfied with the ending? Or do you think potentially we could see more Evangelion movies in the future? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this, consider subscribing. Hitting the like button is a huge help, and click the bell to be notified when I drop my next video, which I got several in the works as we speak. That's it for this one though. See you in the next video.